Many of you over the years have heard of what's called the ultimate success formula. And what I want to do today is walk you through a more granular ultimate success formula. In fact, I think that the ultimate success formula that was built before was a little bit flawed. In fact, I think it was missing a couple of steps. So I'm going to switch my camera here so that you all can see this. Let me do that. Well, if it's going to let me, give me just 1 second. I have to stay co-host. 1 second. Okay, so it's not going to let me. This is great. So ultimate success formula without my visual, I'll go through it. So the first step hasn't changed at all. The first step is know your outcome. So what is it specifically that you're after? And you'll know that you've nailed this piece if you can explain what it is that you're attempting to do to an 8-year-old. So can you explain it so that a kid can understand it? But a lot of us don't take the time to really get clear on what specifically is our outcome here. So that's step one. Step two, and this is the thing I think we also kind of bypass, especially a lot of us that have a bias towards action, is understanding why this is a must. So whatever your outcome is, why is it a must for you? A lot of us don't take the time to mine the meaning behind our goals or our outcomes. And so the relationship we have to our goals and our outcomes are distant or shaky. And I want you to really spend the time focusing on what is it that this outcome is going to give you? And when you think about that, you're going to end up in two worlds. One is the means and one is the ends. So an easy way to put this is like, maybe you have an outcome this year or in the next 12 months to buy a lake home. And if someone asked you, what's your outcome? You would say it's a lake home. Well, that's a means to an end. The question is, what is it that the lake home will give you? What's the payoff that you're hoping to get from it? And that might be a place for your family to come together regularly so that you guys can have fun. It might be maybe you are somebody that likes to lead retreats and it's a great place for you and your team to go off-site. But get really clear about what the emotional payoff is, because everything we do is for an end. And so if you're really going to spend the time understanding the why, don't just get stuck on the means, get all the way to the end. What is it emotionally this is going to pay off, or how is this going to pay off? And let that kind of serve as fuel. You've got to turn your shoulds into must if you're absolutely going to achieve this outcome. The third one is to build your plan. Now, the plan, I believe, there's two things that I would give you on this. Number one, I think there's a principle we should all live by, which is go to the best first. So a great question that you can ask yourself when you're setting out to achieve or to build a plan to achieve is, who has already accomplished what it is I'm after? And if you can interview that person, great. Maybe they're not available to be interviewed. So you could read their books, listen to their podcasts, but don't jump straight into the planning session and just go off of your own experience. Ask who first. Who's already achieving or has already achieved this outcome? And how can I apply what it is that they know so that I'm starting off where they are versus where they started? So that's third step, it needs to be on one page. That's the second piece, but understand that there are people who've already achieved what it is that you want to achieve. And the information is so available. Slow down and spend the time to create a great plan. Step 4, take massive action. Now, when you're taking massive action, I want you to also, inside of that, seek accountability. So the action plans should come from your one-page plan. And yet for most of us, if there isn't someone else expecting or checking in on us, then we don't follow through at the level that we could. It's like if you look at people who work out by themselves versus those who have workout buddies or personal trainers, if you put the results of those people side by side, you're going to see the ones who use the buddy system or the ones who hire a coach, their results will absolutely dwarf the other group. So take action and seek accountability. Then the next step is you've got to notice whether it's working or not. So to notice whether it's working or not, you've got to benchmark and trend. So what you're doing is you're measuring, are my actions creating the results that I want, yes or no? And if they're not, then you've got to dig into why. Now, sometimes it may be that you just haven't had enough time elapse. You're in that what we call the dip. You're in between the action and the result, and you just need to keep going. You've got the right plan, you've got the right actions, it just hasn't happened yet. Other times you may look up and realize that your action plan isn't that good, and now you're not able to, or now you need to be able to pivot. And that's where having, other people around you, where you're having them review your plan or bouncing ideas off of it with you, is so important. But notice whether it's working or not. Benchmark and trend it, and then figure out, is it I have the right actions, I'm doing the right things, but I'm in the dip? Or is it that I've got the wrong actions and I need to pivot? And then the last step is you just change your approach until you achieve the outcome. And what I see as the biggest detriment to this is a perceived feeling of failure. It's a lack of patience that creates a perceived feeling of failure. So what happens is that we live in this Amazon Prime world where everything shows up in 2 days. And when the results we want don't show up in 2 days, we get frustrated. That frustration produces a feeling of failure, and then we stop taking action. And you've heard me say before, failure is simply the conscious decision to quit. If you make that conscious decision to quit, then you have failed. If you don't make the conscious decision to quit, then all you're getting are results. There's only 2 types of results, the one you want, the one that you don't want. So are you patient enough? Is this important enough to you that you will continue changing your approach? You'll continue trying different things until you get the outcome that you wanted in the beginning. And that's really as simple. I mean, that's as simple. That's really it. And everything else I've kind of found is just noise. And, one of the biggest pieces of interference I see around this is boredom. That, it's all exciting when you build the plan. It's exciting when you get into it for the first month or two. But then by month 3, 4, 5, 6, however long it's going to take to achieve this, that's when the real commitment shows up, because the boredom sets in. And do you have a system for dealing with the boredom? Do you have a way of keeping yourself engaged even in that dip? Because what I've found to be true is the more successful you all become, the more boring our conversations ultimately are. And it's hard because we want to talk about these new and exciting things. And Gary said this, and I'm reading the innovation stack, and it's like, I understand all of that. But the thing I keep going back to, as many of you know, is this question: has anybody disproven the leads, listings, leverage model? Has that model been disproven in our market or in our industry? Not one of you has shown me that it has. So the answer is no. Okay. And so should we really be talking about that thing if you haven't mastered this model? If you haven't mastered leads, listings, leverage, why are we talking about another business, another company, anything else? It doesn't make any sense to me. And the reason that you want to talk about those things is because it's boring. It's boring to talk about leads, listings, leverage. In the coaching world, it's the GROW model. The GROW model is the foundational model for coaching. And if you don't know what that is, just go to Google, type in GROW model, click on images, and you'll see it. And I have coaches reach out to me with some big, bright idea. And my question to them is always the same: have you mastered the GROW model? And their answer is no. Okay, that's cool. Why haven't you mastered the GROW model? And why are you trying to do anything else? And the reason that I always find is that they're bored with it. So understand that that's the thing that seems to get in our way of that last step, which is continuing to change our approach until we achieve the outcome.